I'm going to jump in here really quick before we get into the podcast to let you know that there are a few changes going on with CV Ministries. One of the biggest is that we are relocating our office. And honestly, I really don't want to move all of our inventory. So if you want an opportunity to put together a training library for your team, or as you onboard new members to be able to provide them resources to get going, now is a great opportunity. Everything on our website is 50% off now through Easter, only while supplies last. So why not take advantage of this opportunity to expand your training and serving resources? You can take advantage of this savings and the opportunity by going to our website at www.cv-ministries.com. And within the website, you'll see our store there. Go in there, and anything that we have is going to be 50% off with promo code CV2021. Again, that's CV2021. This is part 2 of last week's podcast.
Connecting with other churches in your area to find out and to share what's going on. What are you seeing in your area of the community that may be coming my way? Or what are you experiencing that we need to be aware of?
Welcome to the Church Security Through Prevention podcast, and I'm your host, Daniel Blevins. My guest today is Jeff Grant. Just like I've requested in recent podcasts, Jeff emailed me about being a guest, and here we are. He has served in a variety of areas within his church and is currently the pastor of operations, which within that department oversees the safety and security aspect of his church. I hope that Jeff's experiences and insights will encourage you and your leadership at your church. Our conversation went a little long, so this is going to be a 2-part podcast. As usual, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, as well as do a Google review for us. All right, so let's get going and spend some time with Jeff talking about a leader's perspective on the security of his church.
Yeah, but I think there's a number of, the amount of times like we're going to need to go there versus other security.
Absolutely.
So the eyes and the ears, the helping somebody who coming in that, just seems to be upset, and can we get a pastor, the care pastor or counseling pastor to, pull up alongside and, de-escalate a situation before we ever get to that point of, that's the whole point of caring and having the layers of observation from, the parking lot to the, to the pew, and just
Right.
How do we help them know who's coming in and what is the need.
Yeah, because that is far more likely what we're going to deal with week in and week out. And,
Absolutely. I have more medical current calls than I have, quote unquote security.
That's
related.
right.
But the coordination of the teams to make all that happen is what breeds, I think, confidence to the congregation. We talked again about having the congregation feel welcomed and, comfortable being in a place. But, when they see that stuff happen and it's a coordinated effort and it's effective and efficient, that breeds confidence. And it's like, yeah, I want my family to come here. I want my neighbor to feel comfortable, and they can, and I have confidence that they can attend because, we've thought that through. That's the job of a shepherd, right? The shepherd doesn't have to do it all. Our pastor talks all the time. He's like, as the leader, because you talked about how do you get church leadership in the beginning of the podcast, he from the start sets the standard, sets the expectation that security or the safe team is going to be a priority. It's going to have resources. He doesn't do a thing related to security. He's able to stand up there and be engaged in a conversation and be present with the person to care for them and to listen to them without having to worry what's going on in the room, in the building, where I need to be. He can just be present because he knows he's delegated that responsibility. We have a plan in place. We do our training, and we're implementing our policies that we've, put in place. And so he's allowed it to happen. He's provided the way for it to happen. but he's now free from having to worry about it because he knows if something is needed, the response will be there for him and he doesn't have to, he can just be present with the person. And so that's been the biggest joy, is to see him just be able to do his thing with the congregation, and the team is there to just eliminate any of those distractions.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great point, because God did not, that is not what God has called him to do. And he's got to be able to focus freely on what the mission that God has called him to do. A lot of times I've talked with pastors and I've expressed that to them. It's like, you've got to let go and turn it over, because your frustration, you don't understand this or that or whatever. That's okay. God didn't equip you that way for ministry. This particular ministry is unique. It's new. They're not training it in the seminaries or schools or anything on how do you do this, or the importance of it, for that matter. So it's great that your pastor recognizes that, and that you guys can give him that freedom to focus on the work that God's called him to do, and you can do the work that you're called to do.
Well, and that's what I can talk about, the body of Christ, and we each have a part to play, and each part doing its part, the whole body functions. And so being secure enough in your thing that you don't have to do it, you can delegate it and empower somebody else to do it. There are certain expectations and requirements and accountability for all those pieces, but the operations of it, he's release that to somebody. And whether it's a staff member or a volunteer, you can still have the same expectations of what is it you're looking to achieve, and to work through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier you alluded to how your team was formed before you got there. So tell us a little bit about that.
So when our pastor became the lead pastor, he was the youth pastor and then became the lead pastor. He pulled in a retired state police officer and asked him if he would consider helping form the team. And he was willing to do that, made his recommendations of how he wanted the team to be resourced and equipped, and began to just develop a team. And it's you won't see the advertisement in the bulletin, hey, we're looking for more safe team members, because you alluded to the John Wayne. It's funny, we talk about it, we're not looking for cowboys.
Right.
We're not expecting somebody to, you raise your hand and are super excited and saying, hey, how can I be part of that team? That's probably the quickest way to get you, delayed in being part of the team. And so the team started very small, and really is one that is recommended almost by other team members. You almost have to get the recommendation of an existing team member to say, hey, I vouch for Daniel. I think Daniel should be part of the team. And one of the questions we ask our team members is, from a standpoint of, if you're putting your name on the application as the referral, do you trust your kids' lives with this person? And it's amazing to see the reaction of, I don't know him that well. Opposed to absolutely, like they babysit my kids, or, whatever, those kinds of things. It's like, so helping people really understand that this is a trust factor. These people are basically, you hate to say it, but they're going to go to war with you if need be. And do I have enough confidence in them that they have, my back? They're not all law enforcement background. We serve in an area where we don't have local police. We're supported by state police. And some churches will hire an off-duty police officer to, be present and in uniform. We don't have that luxury. We can't get a police officer from another jurisdiction to come into our jurisdiction. They don't cross lines like that. And you can't hire off-duty state police. So we were left to being a volunteer team. And we like that because it's kind of like the vested interest. My team, more than half of them have kids in the kids ministry. And if there's an issue or a concern, do I doubt those dads are going to protect and run towards danger opposed to, right? So you've got that vested interest in those people. And then it's just a matter of taking the resources and training them to the different operating procedures that we have to get them to respond. So the team is started as a volunteer team. We talk about managing that gap, right? So by the time the state police arrive or the ambulance arrives, do we know the time limit of what we need to manage and, what that response time is and what's that gap, I call it. And so that's what we're trying to manage, because once the professionals, quote unquote, show up, we're done. And so that team was developed, and it's amazing that the state trooper that is retired now and works with me to lead the team, the ministry that's happened in this team is phenomenal. We have a communication app for texting back and forth, and that has grown to be such a prayer network
That's awesome.
amongst the team. I've had the privilege of leading guys to the Lord through this. And the first time that happened because we have an interview process. So it's not just, hey, come join the team, but it's like, hey, somebody wants to join the team and they're recommended from a team member. They get an application from me that just talks about who they are personally, professionally, church, spiritually. And it just gives me an overview of them. And then we sit down and have an interview. And through the course of that interview, we get to talk about, their spiritual condition. And at the heart, I'm a pastor. But, I talk about it and go, you don't need to be a Christian to be on my team. Like there's guys that are serving that they would never have a place to serve in the church. They're not going to work in the nursery. They're not going to lead singing from the front. They don't want to lead a small group. It's like, what do I do? And to have this avenue of being on our medical team, being on our safe team, has provided an opportunity for them to build community with people in our church. And we've seen guys come to the Lord as a result of that. And the founder, the state police guy was like, he's like, I never saw that coming, that this ministry of security is now becoming an evangelistic arm in the church, seeing guys come to know the Lord. Guys are sharing prayer requests, hey, this is happening in my life right now, and blast it out to the group. And now all of a sudden, all their, brothers are saying, hey, praying for you. Hey, we got your back. Hey, you need anything? And they're just cared for. And you go, man, this is so much more than just security on a Sunday.
We just want to take a quick break here to let you know how to contact us and where to find out more about our national seminar. I see communities that may know why church security is important, but they may not be doing anything about it or don't know how to do it well. Our national seminars are for ushers, greeters, children's workers, staff, volunteers, your security teams, and other ministries in your community. We say that this is a level 1 training that is designed to help equip you to serve well in your various ministries while maintaining a safe place for people to come. Getting churches on the same or similar page when it comes to security will only make the community safer as well. The easiest way to find out more information or to contact us is to go to cv-ministries.com. There you'll find a variety of training DVDs and books, with more being developed all the time. There's also a place at the bottom of the page where you can sign up for our monthly newsletter and to be able to get more information. We would love your feedback on topics or guests that you would like to hear on future podcasts. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, and that's awesome to see. We've seen that dynamic in our church with our guys too over the years. Different Bible studies branch out from within the group of guys. We've got 4 campuses, so 4 unique dynamics in that. That for that to happen, and we see we have it's a closed group, but it's a Facebook page that we do a lot of that kind of communication with too, and do life together, with each other, and rib each other from time to time as well on different things. I've got a good friend. I like that whole referral aspect of it, and the question that you ask of them, the interview process, that's so important. We talk about that in another podcast as well, how important that is. God
Yeah.
gave us our stories for a reason. And can you tell your story?
Yeah.
Are you able to tell your story in that? And for those that, like you said, that aren't believers, they're like, okay, it gives you an opportunity to explore that a little bit more from an evangelistic standpoint of what that is in
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
And
which is
walk
huge.
that with them and say it's not and I tell them, like, this is not a um, pass or failure in being part of the team. Like, part of my job is you're part of this church, you're coming to this church. And then granted, you've got to be here a period of time. So it's not like somebody just walking into this whole process. So
Correct.
they've been around for a while. And so, to be able to have that conversation though, but they've never really talked to maybe somebody in depth, but they have a desire to give back in a way that they're equipped to do. But allows me to have a conversation with them in a different way that, they're open to it because they've been blessed. Their kids have been loved in a way that they're like, this is so awesome. Or, the messages on Sunday, the worship, it's just like, man, what can I do to be part of this? And then to have that and say, well, let's talk about you. And we really care about you more than we'll get to the security stuff, but let's talk about you first.
Yeah. Yeah. A good friend of mine, when we talk about, like the referral piece and things along those lines and not putting it in the bulletin.
Yeah.
Uh, I love it when he talks about it, Jimmy Meeks, and he talks about the Jesus method of recruiting, to where, he didn't put out an ad somewhere. He went right up to the individual, because he was a little bit better equipped than we are, but he knew their heart, and he knew, what they needed and so on, to where, same thing with the referral aspect of it. It's like, okay, I've seen these guys do life. I see who they are. I'm very much in favor of using the standard of in Scripture for elders, in many ways, for qualifications for serving on the team in that. So, how is this person? Because you don't want people bringing in, we're hurting it. We're broken people regardless. But if we can avoid bringing in aspects that Satan can take advantage of and weaken what we're trying to do, then we're all into that. And Jesus knew that when he was recruiting.
It's funny you say that. When I'll share one funny story. We're in an interview with somebody, and because I'm the paid pastor and not the volunteer who's the started it, all the hard decisions come to me. He's like, that's why you get paid. I can sit here and be the fun guy. But it became apparent that we probably weren't going to have this person join our team, which really, and talk about lessons learned. What do you share in that interview process about your team?
Mm-hmm.
When you realize, okay, this isn't going forward, like I probably shouldn't have said all that stuff in the interview process. And so that's probably more onboarding, orientation stuff but new in the process, you don't separate those categories. You're just
right.
talking about, man, this is a great team and this is what we do. And, and so, but it became apparent. And when it was over, we talked about it, and there wasn't any one thing that we could necessarily point our finger to. It wasn't like, oh man, that was the glaring thing. And we joked about it at the end. We're like, is that the guy you want to go out and have wings with on a Friday night? Like, are you going to hang out and do life with this guy? And we both were like, I can go have wings with you, but I'm probably not going to invite him. Like, I hate to say it like that, but like that was the gut check and it's panned out. We've really protected ourselves. And when we go against that gut check on top of all the other layers that we have, we've really been protected. And I think part of that is, like you said, it's God has given us that ability to evaluate some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's how in tune are we with the Holy Spirit in our own lives to be able to be sensitive when those little inklings come up of, something's just not right here.
Yeah.
In many cases, when I go into a situation, whether it's, even this week, I had to confront a couple people on campus, and it was, Lord, give me your words, not mine, in this, so that I have that discernment and stuff. And I truly believe that, in those situations, the Holy Spirit's like, no, yeah,
Right.
and you in the wings. Yep. Would I go have wings with him? Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's
Probably
just kind
not.
of a funny way, to
It
say it that
is.
we do, but it's one of those things where it's like we get into trouble sometimes because it's like, do I need to fill a slot? And when I get pressured to do that, it never goes well. Opposed to, no, I'm going to trust the Lord that He's bringing the right people at the right time to be part of our team.
Yeah, I never sweat it. This last week, we not everybody showed up to serve, yeah, which was unusual. And this was at least at the beginning of the service. It was just two of us. Not nearly enough, but it's okay. I never sweat it. They're volunteers, and as am I. And it's like, okay, Lord, it's okay. We do hire off-duty officers, great guys. We have the regular guys, and we're able to do that. So it's a force multiplier for us as well.
Absolutely.
And then it just happened that this husband and wife that were supposed to be there serving as well, we are new to being back in person. They were used to it being a different time frame, everything else. They're like, oh my gosh, we totally forgot. And it was just like, hey, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't sweat the little things. God's got it under control regardless, of what happens. I'm not going to get frustrated over something that I can't control anyway.
Well, one of the neat things that you talked about having, hired, extra help, um, because we're state police, we can't do that. But what I've been able to do is I actually became a chaplain for the state police,
Nice.
and was eventually able to be with the barracks that actually respond to our church facility. There's quite a few barracks around the area that, it's one of those, you don't really get to pick which one you get assigned to because they already have a chaplain. But because of retirement and all those things, I've gotten to get in there, and just building that relationship with the guys that are going to be and the gals that are going to be coming in our building, and the barracks, lieutenant, to help him get a good vibe and feeling like we're there partnering with them. We're not trying to replace them, but having that good relationship with whatever responding law enforcement agency that's going to be has just grown over time. And for me to just be able to, they give me freedom now. I go to roll call once a week and just sit there and listen. And it's amazing. Every time I'm there and the lieutenant's there, he allows me to pray with the troops before they go out on the next. He's like, Chap, you want to, throw up a prayer for us? And it's just, the receptivity that he's given to me, to be able to be that for them. I got to marry one of the police officers, came up in the church and was like, hey, do you do weddings? And that to me was like a milestone, like to be accepted in that group to
Yes.
that level where like he wants me to be part of that, like that. So, building that relationship with the responding law enforcement is so huge as well.
Yeah, it really is. Well, is there anything that we haven't covered, Jeff, that you feel would be important to talk about that was on your mind when you sent the email?
No, I think, I think just being part of, even for churches to have other resources, like this is a great resource, or connecting with other churches in your area to find out and to share what's going on. What are you seeing in your area, the community, that may be coming my way? Or what are you experiencing that we need to be aware of? So having those networks and connecting, I think is so good. And just seeing all the different resources like this podcast and other things to help people with training and standards and helping, raise the bar of what these teams do.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only is it creating, I hope, safer churches, but safer communities. As you talk about, reaching out to the other churches in the community and working more and more together. I know it's something when we do our seminars, we really encourage, multiple churches coming, and then for them to network with each other. We try and take lunch just for that reason. Don't just sit with your team. Go meet the other guys, and network with each other, because it makes us safer community overall as well. Any opportunity we can get to not give Satan a foothold in our churches and in our community is, because we know evil's an any time, any place thing now, much more so than I think it once was, much more evident at least. And so then, whatever we can do to do that. And I thank you that you're doing that in your community.
I'd say the last thing I just thought of was, different times people say, well, we're just regathering. It's such a small group that's coming back than what was previously. And do we really need the team? And I'm like, with the climate and the tension and the stress that people are over, I'm like, it's more important now than it ever was, because I feel like something's going to set somebody off so easily now because we're so stressed. There's built up tension that the risk of something happening could almost be worse now than prior to, when we had more numbers in the building, but because of the tension that people are under, the stress. So really encourage people to don't grow lax in putting something together and working the plan.
Nope. I think that's a great encouragement, because there has been a lot of complacency that we've heard from churches around the country, or people that just aren't coming back. They've enjoyed not having to serve, and they're not coming back to serve. And it's, it's like, I can't control it again. So, okay, it's unfortunate. But it is what it is. So that's a great encouragement to churches that you're absolutely right. And that's the way we've looked at it, because before we even started Regathering, we were doing what was called huddles, to where it was just small groups meeting in different buildings, on the campus, and limiting it to like 20 or 30 people in that, so that they could still have a little bit of community, watch the service, the recorded service, and fellowship a little bit with each other. Great. They started doing that. All hands on deck, security wise.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't change. It doesn't change how we serve or how we protect the flock.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, man. Great being with you.
Sir. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that today.
Oh, appreciate it.
Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this podcast. If you really enjoyed it and you found it of benefit to you, we really appreciate your feedback. There's several different ways that you can provide us feedback. One of them is to subscribe to the podcast, is to share it with others, and another is to contact us directly, particularly if you have any questions or concerns, or you want more information on how to host a seminar in your community. You can contact me directly at danielblevins@cv@heart.com, or you can go to our website. That's cv-ministries.com. Both of those will get you in the right direction. Until next time, make sure that you're out there protecting the flock with a heart of service.